Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to me talking about books. This time we're returning to books that are, for some reason, popular on the internet, specifically TikTok, also called Booktok, a platform I'm actually not on, but that doesn't matter. Books that are popular on TikTok are automatically also quite popular everywhere else on the internet, and I have made it my mission, for some reason, to read a bunch of popular TikTok books to see if they're actually any good. Because you always hear a lot about them, and then you're wondering, are they really like any good? And then you hear about some of them, and then you get like the usual rant video reviews or something, and you're like, okay, that sounds awful, but are they really that awful? So I kind of want to take you on this journey with me as I dive into mysterious the mysterious mystery. Yes, that's what I'm going to call it because that makes sense. That is popular BookTok books, and I've put it to you, the viewers. Which should our first book be? And you people have decided that I should read The Cruel Prince. Now, The Cruel Prince I had actually heard of before, so just as a general note, every book that I usually propose in my polls for, hey, do you want me to read this? I have heard of. So that was my rule when I made a list of popular BookTok books. I was like, okay, it has to be so popular that even I have heard of it outside of TikTok because I'm not on there. And this was one I heard about quite frequently. The Cruel Prince is a quite popular young adult fantasy book, specifically a fairy fantasy book. So The Cruel Prince, written by Holly Black, is the first book in a long-running series. I think it's Holly Black's most popular series. I know that a lot of people are big fans of it. Like on Goodreads, when I'm checking the numbers here right now, on Goodreads, The Cruel Prince currently has 1.1 million ratings, and the average rating balances out at 4.05 stars, which is pretty good. Like, if you have over 1 million ratings and you still manage to be like above 4 stars, that's really, really good. So, as I've mentioned, this is a fairy fantasy book. I know that the subcategory of fairy fantasy is quite popular. I think Court of Thorns and Roses, which I haven't read yet, is probably the most famous and most popular example of that type of fantasy. So I've never read fairy fantasy. I'm not familiar with it. It's not necessarily a subgenre. I don't have anything against it. I just have never really come across it, or there haven't really been any books in that genre that had gained my attention previously. But now we're jumping in it with The Cruel Prince, and just as a general disclaimer, I'm not bringing any like previous fairy fantasy knowledge to this. So if I'm having questions about how do fairies work and stuff, and maybe there's like some established general law across, the genre in general, and I'm just not aware of it, please take that into consideration. I basically went into this having no idea about the fairy genre as a whole. I just went into it with being like, okay, I'm a fantasy reader, I like fantasy, and I'm just expecting a fun YA fairy fantasy adventure. But what is The Cruel Prince even about? Well, let me tell you. But now here the general story is that The Cruel Prince is about Jude and her siblings, but mainly about Jude. Their parents were killed when they were young. They were killed by Maddox, a fairy who is the father of Vivi, the oldest of the 3 siblings. And he kills their parents and takes the children to the fairy world. So there, Jude grows up alongside her older sister Vivian and her twin sister Taryn. They grow up as a member of the court. Maddox is not a member of the royal family, however, he's basically the knight of the king. He's like really close to the king and is a famous and popular knight at the court. And we basically just follow Jude as she goes about her business in the fairy world. We see her interacting with her now dad, with Maddox, how that relationship has developed after, he's killed her parents. And we see how Jude deals with day-to-day life in the fairy world, mainly at school, because there are a bunch of people who really don't like her, because there's a lot of fantasy racism, because humans suck and fairies are superior. So people bully her at school. There's especially this one guy called Carden, who is basically who's the prince. He's one of the sons of the current ruling king. But he's really, really mean to her. And when I say really, really mean, I mean downright abusive. As in, Jude almost dies once or twice in this novel because of the bullying Carden and his friend group put upon her. So that's sort of what happens. And in between, we get some ambitions that Jude has. That she wants to become a fighter. She wants to become a knight, but Maddox is against that. Then she has a chance to prove herself differently in the fairy world. Another prince who's not Carden, but one of his brothers, Dane, approaches her and basically says, hey, I want you to be a spy for me, because I think you got the right skill set for this. So Jude becomes a spy for Prince Dane, sneaks around the castle, sneaks around the palaces, gathering information, all that. Meanwhile, at school, the bullying is still going on. Carden is being an asshole. Then the story is kind of a mess, which is why it's a bit hard to tell you what this book is actually about. So some spy stuff is going on. The story slowly builds up to, the coronation, who's going to become the next king, because the old king is I'm going to abdicate, the next son's going to take over. And obviously Dane wants to be that the next king. On the day of the coronation, however, that shit really hits the fan. It goes all Game of Thrones, Red Wedding, and one of the other princes basically kills almost the entire royal family and wants to be crowned king himself. However, that doesn't quite happen yet. And then basically the rest of the book is Jude trying to figure out how they can get rid of this evil king. How is there maybe someone else they can crown as king? And then they find someone who would also qualify for this, and she has to work together with Carden, because he's, as a member of the royal family who survived, he can crown a new king. And then it sort of ramps up to this finale where, they want to crown a new king and they stage a coup against the evil brother. And then it all ends right after their basically coup coronation that they put on. It's the general story of the Cruel Prince. I'll jump into more detail in a minute here. Let's maybe just talk about some quick general stuff, some general opinions before we jump into it. In general, I would say I didn't enjoy this book very much. It was not the worst book I've ever read. I've read worse popular fantasy books. Looking at you, Fourth Wing. But this wasn't this wasn't great by any means. Let's say it was bearable, barely. This book was way too short. It only has 370 pages. And for what this book is trying to do, namely trying to be a YA fairy Game of Thrones, it's not doing enough work, because the story is very unfocused, because for 75% of the book, there isn't really a story, as you will see. There will be many plot beats where you're oh, this is what the book is going to be about, but then the book basically deals with that plot beat 2 chapters later, and then you're left wondering, well, what the hell are we going to do now? That's sort of what the entire book is which was very, very confusing. Added to that is the fact that we follow a main character through this entire story only once, told from Jude's point of view, and she is made out to be this clever, scheming badass, but we don't really see much of that. And the way in which the world of this book operates is that we're basically most of the time in the fairy world, but we don't really have any idea what the fairy world looks like. I'm probably gonna come back to that later in the conclusion, but like descriptions are very scarce in this book. It's mostly reliant on, you know, Jude's inner monologue and her dialogue with other people. But when we like get to specific places, there are barely any detailed descriptions. Like she goes to different palaces, to houses, and I have no idea what really any of these places look like. I have a vague idea what the characters look like, but I have no idea what the fairy world looks like. So I just kept imagining like some standard fantasy Lord of the Rings stuff, which probably isn't what the author had in mind. But I can't really do anything about it if authors refuse to literally describe anything in any amount of detail. The writing style itself is not terribly bad, however, it's also not really that great. It's mid, like it's readable. It has one or two moments, and we're gonna get into those when we cover the whole story. There are moments in this where you're really wondering what are those phrases, like moments of really, really lazy and unimaginative writing. Then there are phrases that do sound really fancy and thoughtful, but they sort of have this vibe of the author came up with these phrases beforehand and thought they sounded cool, and then just put them in there, but nothing surrounding that pretty line makes any sense in context. So they sort of just like stand out. Like it's not really offensively bad. It's also not that great. Like it's very much readable. It mostly sticks to like this classic YA 21st century girl teenage tone of voice, which makes sense because, you know, our main character is like a, I don't know, 17-year-old teenager, which occasionally stands in contrast on purpose, I'm assuming, to the fairy characters who are sort of a bit more medievalish, like vintagey. The thing is, some of the fantasy or fairy characters, sometimes they do talk like in this more old school vintage kind of way, but sometimes they also just sound exactly like Jude, who I will remind you is a human from the 21st century. So that feels a bit weird at times. But at least, while there were one or two phrases where I would like outright groaned at how stupid they sounded, at least there wasn't anything like so offensively bad that I wanted to put the book down for a week and not read anymore. It wasn't this. It was just this entire book is basically just very, very, very mid. Like it's not great. It's not the worst book I've ever read, but like if it gets good, it's like average at best. So that's sort of where we are as a general vibe. And now I'm just gonna take you through the book. As always, I've made notes while I read the whole book. In case you're wondering where I'm looking, this is where I keep my notes. People who've watched my 4-hour Fourth Wing rants know what this is like. I'm just gonna casually go through the story of the book, tell you about some of my thoughts I have while reading. I put in some quotes that I picked out where I was like, oh, that made me like stop in my tracks while reading or something like that. So obviously also that includes spoilers in case you weren't aware of that yet. But yeah, so much for the preamble. Let's jump into The Cruel Prince. Oh, before we start, this book is dedicated to Cassandra Clare. Like I've heard of Cassandra Clare. She wrote the Mortal Instrument series, which I haven't read, but I'm aware. And do Holly Black and Cassandra Clare know each other? I don't know. I was just surprised why I saw a dedication to an actual well-known fantasy author. I don't know. Just felt a bit weird. Okay, this book starts off with a prologue, and I'm gonna be honest. The prologue actually got me interested into reading the rest of this book because the prologue is, unfortunately, the best part of this entire book. So the prologue, it's written in third-person POV, unlike the rest of the book, which is told from Jude's perspective. So it basically picks up in the human world with Jude, her twin sister Taryn, and her older sister Vivian, or called Vivi. And basically it just talks about how there's a knock at the door and a stranger is there. He looks quite different. and this man just basically walks into their home and he murders their parents. He just like outright murders their mother and father right in front of them, and it's very brutal. It's violent, obviously YA violence, but it certainly made an impression. Obviously, all the kids are crying, and Maddox, so that's the man who just came in here to murder some people. Basically, is like, Vivian, you are my child. Your mother took you away from me, and I'm gonna take you back to your home, to the fairy world. And you two, so then he talks to Jude and Taryn, who are human, who are not his biological children. He's like, you're coming with me as well. And then he basically abducts them and takes them to the fairy world. Like, this prologue is honestly really engaging. Like, it's a great hook, because it immediately poses some questions. It tells us who our main characters are going to be, but then it asks us to be like, oh, who is this man? Why did he kill the parents? What's Fairy World? Where are they actually taking them? What's going to happen to the children? And obviously, it's quite a shock to immediately like open the book with such heavy violence, to like literally kill the parents of our main characters. I think that's a pretty good opening, and I honestly thought, wow, this actually sounds interesting. And then I turned the page, saw chapter 1, and immediately lost all hope. Because this is what chapter 1 looks like. In Faerie, there are no fish sticks, no ketchup, no television. That's the entirety of the first chapter. It's one sentence, and it's a sentence that irritated the hell out of me. I just don't know what to do with that. Like, I mean, I guess it's a neat idea to, I don't know, have a chapter that's like one sentence, but I don't get the point here. This is the only time the author does this, and it's only this first chapter. And it's like, why focus on fish sticks, ketchup, television? I don't know. Like, what is it? What does it mean? Someone tell me. Okay, in chapter 2, we're now jumping into the actual narrative. We reunite with Jude. She is now 17 years old. So she has now lived in Fairy World for, I think, like almost 10 years, or around 10 years. And she is getting dressed for attending court. And apropos getting dressed, the clothes and the outfits in this book are something that will actually be described in great detail. Like, we don't have any greater detail on, the locations or what this world looks like, this fantasy world that's made up. But we get a lot of detail when it comes to what everyone is wearing. Like, whenever there's an important occasion, a new interesting outfit, or just a general scene where someone wears something slightly remarkable, the author will describe it to us. It felt a little annoying after a while, also because it felt kind of fan fiction-y. Like, I don't know, to just have, like, in great detail described every single time what every person is wearing. And I get it that you do want to describe this maybe the first time a character appears, and it makes sense to maybe describe it if it's like a special occasion, like, I don't know, when they go to the coronation and they get fancy dresses. I get why you would describe that, because that's an actual important outfit for the occasion. But to have that happen in literally almost every single chapter felt a little irritating. And another thing that felt irritating is what Jude does for these first couple of chapters, because Jude basically gives the reader straight up exposition in our face, and it's always framed as, oh, this is something Jude is conveniently thinking about right now. But it's basically like, she starts thinking about something, and then basically for no reason at all goes into like really great detail about, I don't know, a creature, what they are, or what this place in Fairy World is, for no real reason. and it always seems very convenient that she happens to remember or think about those things right now. Like in this chapter, she like straight up just expositions to our face who this creature is that she's talking to right now. But it's not just like, oh, that's this person, they're an imp, and imp is blah blah blah, and then it's done after 3 sentences. No, like she goes on for like 2 or 3 paragraphs, and I'm like, wow, how convenient that you keep remembering those world building bits. How very convenient that you just keep doing that every couple of paragraphs. It's not annoying or unrealistic at all. So that's something that keeps popping up throughout the book, especially in these first couple of chapters. So Jude talks a bit about life at court, you know, who the imp is that she's talking to, how she got into court. We learn that she lives in or near the High King of Elfheim, like his stronghold locations. The High King is basically like the ruler of the fairy world, I'm guessing. So this is the one who we're later gonna learn is like is abdicating, and then his next son is supposed to take over. Then we get a bit more exposition about who Maddox is, because conveniently now Jude has to think about her history with Maddox, and we learn here that she loves him. Like, she just straight up says that she loves him, the man who murdered her parents right in front of her. Many nights I drifted off to sleep to his mumbling voice, reading from a book of battle strategy, and despite myself, despite what he'd done and what he was, I came to love him. I do love him. It's just not a comfortable kind of love. And I'll have to remind you, basically 1 chapter ago, because let's ignore the 1 chapter, the 1 sentence chapter, basically 5 pages ago, we were witness to Maddox killing Jude's parents violently right in front of her. And I understand we had like a 10-year time skip, but with no explanation or deeper exploration whatsoever, Jude just like straight up tells us no, that she loves him. And you're like, what? This man murdered your parents! It doesn't matter what he's done over the past few years, or that he raised you. He murdered your parents when you were 7 years old, right in front of you. This basically traumatized you for fucking life. What the hell? We never really get a deeper explanation of how she has come to love him over these years. And in fact, the book, or Jude, basically acts the opposite. Like, she keeps saying throughout the book occasionally that, oh, it's complicated, I don't really like him much, but I also really love him for, I don't know, raising us or something. But she never really acts like that. She basically goes the complete opposite way and always acts like she absolutely hates him, always wants to go against him. Which makes sense, but also then she keeps telling us that she loves him, and you're like, what the murderer of your parents? What the hell, girl? What the hell? She talks a bit about what her life is like, her room, that she has some stuff from the human world. She says that she doesn't want to throw her stuffed animals away, that they give her comfort, and I was like, relatable. I get you, girl. And then we get to know about Maddox's second wife, so his fairy wife, who's called Oriana, and they have a young son called Oak. Here, Jude has another convenient flashback that gives us exposition about who Oak is, how they met, what, you know, basically like a montage of what their life was like together up until this point. So basically in chapter 2, this whole convenient flashback exposition thinking nonsense has happened like at least 4 times, and it's gonna get even more annoying later. Because in chapter 3, we get like a whole info dump on who the royal family is, like each member. We haven't even really met anyone from the court yet at this point. We have no connection to this stuff whatsoever. They like attend, I don't know, like a meeting or ball or something. Then something happened that irritated me, like Jude because it gets really focused on Jude sees a girl with white hair steal something from a rich person, and she just like watches that girl instantly and smiles at her and thinks about her. And like this girl's focused on for like at least one entire paragraph or two. I was like, oh, this girl's probably gonna come back at some point, right? No. We just threw in this scene that a white-haired little girl stole something, and for some reason Jude was really focused on that, but didn't mean anything in the greater scheme of things. It is here that we are first introduced to Prince Carden, and I'm going to tell you what he looks like. He wears a long black coat, and he's moody, because of course he is, and he has dark hair, because of course they do. And basically, the first time we see Carden, he outright just assaults a guy. Just assaults a guy casually. And I got two things from this. I'm like, okay, first off, this is definitely going to be the future love interest. And second of all, wow, what a shitty introduction for this character we're supposed to care for later. Because, in case it wasn't obvious, Carden is going to be the bully type of love interest. And oh boy, is that my favorite kind of love interest. We get a bit of info on what the family life is like. Jude and Taryn are at least said to be not as negatively minded towards Maddox, for whatever reason. Whereas Vivian, Jude tells us, defies Maddox at everywhere and at every turn. I'm like, good, as she should. He killed their parents and kidnapped them. Why aren't any of you more upset about this? So after that, the next day in chapter 4, we get to attend like a regular school day, because yes, these kids basically go to regular school. It's like Faerie school. So they go to school with the other fancy high court Faerie kids. This is where we meet Carden properly, together with his friend group. He is once again being an arse. He bullies her and like Jude and her sister. Like, there's a lot of fantasy racism in this, of the meanest kind, which also turns physical at some points. But Jude is trying to be like, nah, I've lived here for 10 years now. I'm not gonna give in now. I'm going to best him. I'm gonna be better than them, or just like them. So that's sort of the general vibe we're gonna get from Jude in this book. Basically, also the only vibe. Jude is gonna say many, many times that she's like, I'm gonna defy them. I'm gonna become one of them. I'm gonna be just as good as them. She says that a lot. It's a lot of tell, don't show in this book, unfortunately. But yeah, that's sort of the general vibe Jude has throughout the book. In chapter 5, we return to family life. We get some weird descriptions about how the siblings have developed, which, honestly, considering that this is told from Jude's point of view, feels odd and kind of inappropriate. Are you going to quit the tournament? Taryn asked, shoveling a handful of berries into her mouth. We are hungry children. Already we are taller than Vivi, our hips wider, and our breasts heavier. Please someone tell me in which world a 17-year-old girl would talk about herself and her siblings like this? Like, what the... What? What? Who thought this was a good idea? To describe... I'll remind you, except Vivian, underage people like that. Even Vivian is still quite young, I think. Why would you focus on wider hips and heavier breasts? Why would you do that? Holly Black, are you okay? Do we need to get you a therapist? So, this feels weird. Then afterwards, Maddox talks about the king, and he says that the High King will soon abdicate, and leave the throne to one of his sons. Currently, it's said that he's going to leave the throne to his third son, Dane. Meanwhile, Jude is occupied with something completely else. She's occupied with a tournament that is going to come up soon, the summer tournament, and she wants to join. She wants to fight there, so she can declare that she wants to be chosen for knighthood, because Maddox has trained her in combat ever since he's taken them to the Faerie world, and she wants to become a big fighter, a knight, essentially. And Maddox is like, no, you're not ready for knighthood yet. You can go and attend the tournament, but basically don't do anything. Don't declare yourself for knighthood, essentially. So this tournament in the first couple of chapters is made out to be this big thing for Jude. Like, she really wants to attend this, and she wants to win it. She wants to show what she can do. She wants to display her skills. She wants to show that she's better than the fairies, or at least just as good as the fairies, and she wants to become a knight and fight for the kingdom. And you're gonna assume that this is going to be like the big thing, one of the big things the book is going to be about. Like, this is something Jude is striving towards. We'll come back to it sooner than you think. In chapter 6, Jude quite literally conveniently remembers that she should have provided the reader with even more exposition. Like, literally the narration is like, oh hey, I should probably tell you a couple more things just to make things clear. I'm like, I guess, I mean, you don't have to, and it feels very unnatural, but if you want, you can. So she tells us that a guard bit of a bit of her left ring finger at some point. I don't think that's gonna become relevant at any point. She tells us basically that she was roofied when she was 11 against her will, and I had to think about that for a while. And weirdly enough, her getting roofied against her will when she was 11 is not going to be the only time Jude gets roofied against her will. We're going to come back to it. And she tells us that Oak once glamoured her when, I don't know, he was 4 or something. So glamour is basically like something fairies can do. It's basically like in D&D, like if you do charm person, that's sort of what a glamour is for a fairy. They basically have like this vampire power, like, and now you will do this and this, like sort of like that. It's like, it's really basically they roll really high on the charisma stat. So that's what Jude lets us know conveniently and spontaneously in chapter 6. In chapter 7, we return to more bullying from Carden and his friends. Basically, the bullies harass Jude and Taryn, and they basically take them and they push them into a river. And this all in the name of Carden. Like, Carden told his friends to do it. So they push these humans into this dangerous river where they almost drown. And then they basically force Taryn to kiss Carden on the cheek, but still, what the hell? So they're like, yeah, you have to give Carden a kiss. I don't know if they actually glamour her to do it. Regardless, it's highly inappropriate. And Carden literally promises Jude that he will break her. Our love interest, ladies and gentlemen, what a charmer. In chapter 8, our main characters are going to the mall. Yes, you heard me right. They're going to the mall. Let's go to the mall today. Not something I expected, Because it turns out the human world and the fairy world exist in close proximity to one another. It's never really made clear how this works, how these two realms exist in close proximity to one another. The fairies know about the human world, but the humans have no idea about fairy world, and I think like they can without problems travel from the fairy world into the human world, but humans can't travel into the fairy world. It's never really explained. It's never made clear how this works, and it honestly kind of bothered me. So in this, they're going to the mall. Like, they're allowed to basically have a walk in the human world. They go there with Vivian, and I was honestly wondering, why are they allowed to go there? Like, seriously, why? If Maddox took such an effort to kidnap these children, to kill their parents, to drag them to fairy world, why does he allow them to still have a connection with the human world? I don't get it. Now, here's one of the few positive things about this book. Vivian turns out is actually bisexual, and she has a girlfriend. She wants to meet up with her, and she wants to introduce her sister to her girlfriend. So it's nice that we have one of the three siblings, that one of them is a queer character. However, Vivian is the one sibling character that's actually not all that important to this overall story in this first book. Yes, the one sibling who's actually related to the actual fairy man who came to kill their parents and kidnap her is not actually important to the overall story. Yeah, I know, makes sense. Okay, what I do like here though is that they talk about hygiene products. So they talk about that they need or want to get tampons from the human world because fairy world doesn't have them. And I was like, kudos! Not a lot of fantasy novels actually address stuff like that. So kudos to you, the Corporans. That was actually a nice detail. Then a human boy tries to flirt with Jude, and her reaction is decks him in the face. Like, straight up reaction, decks him in the face. No idea why. Maybe because the fairy boys are mean to her, but this boy basically just walked up to her, said like one or two lines, and she's just like, BAM! It's like, I'm gonna leave. It's so stupid. After they return to Fairy World, we get like another quick moment with Carden, who's still a git. He makes Taryn cry, and Jude is like trying to confront him. In chapter 9, for some reason, Taryn is like, hey, maybe you should fix things with Carden so it's fine. And I'm like, what? This boy bullied the both of you. He made you kiss him against your will. They threw you in a river that almost drowned you. And now Taryn is like, hey Jude, can you like please go make up with that bully? Because you're being a bit stubborn, and you know, I'm basically saying this is your fault if you don't go and make up with the bully who is torturing us. So could you maybe go and do that? And you're like, what the fuck, Taryn? What is your fucking problem? Her fucking problem is that Taryn is the worst. I don't know if she's intentionally on purpose to be written to be the worst. I'm assuming so, because there are gonna be some reveals later in regards to her character, but Taryn is a freaking bitch. I'm gonna say it right now. She's very unlikable. Precisely for stuff like this, basically. And obviously even Jude is like, what the fucking hell are you talking about, girl? So, the tournament happens. Yes, the very big tournament thing everyone was talking about that we were building up towards, and we were going to think, oh, this is going to be like one of the major plot points of the book. No, we're going to deal with it right now in chapter 9 out of, I think, 30 or something. So they go to the Isle of Woe, I think it is said, to attend the tournament. Carden obviously there as well with his friends, and he confronts her very violently yet again, and even says that he wants her to beg. He wants her to beg, and all Jude does is basically give him a stern talking to. And once again, you're like, how the fucking hell is this boy going to be the future love interest that we're supposed to care about? He's literally the worst. Not human being, the worst fairy being in this book right now. Like, what the hell? Okay, so basically the whole tournament thing, done, dealt with. This is not going to be a major plot for this book. This kind of thing is going to happen a couple of times, actually. As you will notice, this book will introduce big plot beats or things where you think, oh, this is what the story is going to be about. This seems really, really important to Jude. And then just 3 chapters later, the book will be like, and that's done. And you're like, what? But what's the story? I thought this was going to be the story. What's the story? That was my major question for this entire book. What's the story? So that's dealt with. In chapter 10, we're back at home, and Prince Dane is waiting there. So Prince Dane is the 3rd son of the king. He's the one in line for the throne currently, and he wants to talk to Jude. He apologizes for Carden, for his little brother, and he proposes to Jude that he wants her to work as a spy for him, and she eventually accepts the job because, of course, she wants to rise in the ranks of, sort of the fairy court, and she wants to apply her skills and all that. In chapter 11, we go back to some boring school shit that no one really cares about except the bullying, because that's the most important bit in this romance subplot. So what happens here is, warning, it's basically borderline sexual assault. So what happens is that Jude is force-fed a fairy fruit, like a fairy apple, that makes her lose control. So she's quite literally out of her mind. She's not in control of her actions. And what they do, the bullies, including Carden's friends, they tell her what to do. And it borderlines sexual assault because they make her undress. Not completely naked, but they make her take off her dress. And as if this wasn't enough, Carden says that he wants her to crawl in front of him and kiss his feet. And I have no words for the awfulness of that scene. It made me feel all kinds of uncomfortable things that I didn't want to feel. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Holly Black, what is your problem? Do you need help? Please tell us if you need help. Because I worry that I have to read about a 17-year-old being borderline sexually assaulted by the boy she's eventually gonna end up with. It's so problematic in so many ways. So after that, after Jude gets home, she doesn't talk about it at all, doesn't mention it to anyone that this happened, and she finds a note from Prince Dane, and it is her first assignment, which says, go to a hollow hall, find us a secret the king won't like, find treason. Jude sneaks into the palace to spy on Baelkin, one of the other brothers within the royal family, and honestly, the way in which Jude is just able to casually sneak into, via disguise, sneak into the palace, and then she just is able to sneak about the corridors. She literally just starts opening up random doors, enters random rooms until she finds shit, and no one sees her. And I'm like, what? My guy, what is the king's security doing? Are they sleeping on the job? Like, what the hell? get better security, because this is embarrassing. She eventually finds, I think, Baelkin's room. She finds a note there that contains some interesting information. She copies it and hides it. And then she hears Baelkin talking with Carden. They're about to enter the room, so she has to hide. The two boys enter. It's like sword practice, or they arrive from sword practice. And we learn a bit about the relationship between the siblings, because Carden is physically beaten and punished by his older brother Baelkin. And basically, this is the book's. This is going to be the book's excuse or explanation for why we're supposed to feel sympathy for Carden, because he has a tragic family life. This is basically the moment where it's supposed to be like, oh, there's actually more to him than meets the eye, and what's more to him is that, oh, he gets beaten at home, which is admittedly, obviously, sad. But, this is no explanation or excuse for him being a massive, abusive bully. Like, what the fuck? This book is basically trying to be like, yeah, I know he's a prick, but, his home life is really bad. So maybe feel bad for him too? And I'm like, no. What's wrong? No! You have to do, like, actual redemption and character work for me to like this guy. You can't just be like, oh, he's a massive asshole, but also his family doesn't like him. So now he's cool, right? And I'm like, no, fuck off, no. I need whole redemption, Zuko, Vegeta kind of redemption nonsense for me to actually come to like this boy. But this book never does that. So after Jude has witnessed that, she returns to Dane. She gives him the message. Basically, the message, I didn't honestly quite get it. It's about that Baelkin blackmailed another queen, and there's some poison involved, that some people got poisoned, and then with that information Baelkin is blackmailing someone. I honestly didn't quite get it. It's not even really that important, but it is a secret. It is evidence that one of the sons of the king is actually up to no good. So Dane is happy with that. He magics her to not say anything about her work or what she's doing or what she's found. So it was like doing this bewitching charm person thing on Jude. And then he takes her to his secret spy lair, which is called the Court of Shadows, because of course that's what it's called. And if you're now thinking, oh, this is going to be the major story of the book, this is going to be the major plot that, Jude learns how to be an assassin. She's gonna hang out with the Court of Shadows, and she's gonna become a cool spy and potentially an assassin and do a lot of spy shit and help Dane become the king of Faerie, but while she does her own shit, and there's gonna be like some intrigue and assassin and spy nonsense. Nope. That's not what this book's going to be about. Not at all. So in chapter 14, we meet some of the other spy members who have interesting names. They have interesting names because they're always called the something. So we have the Ghost, who is a person. He's like a half human, I think. And we have the Bomb. And the third character, I think the Roach or something. But they're always referred to as that, like the full thing. It's never just, oh, Ghost said or Bomb said. It's not like it's nicknames. I mean, I'm assuming it's, but it's always said the Ghost said. The Bomb approaches me. The Roach does this and this. And that felt really weird to read. I get that you sort of want to do, spy assassin nicknames, but why with always the definitive article in front? why? Why would that feel so weird? It felt so weird to read it like that. That sometimes there was stuff like the bomb approaches me. I'm like, what fucking bomb? I'm like, oh, the person that's called Bomb for a nickname. I don't know. That felt really weird. Then she goes back home and she talks to a guy called Locke. Now, Locke, we've actually, I'm not mentioned him yet, but he has popped up a couple of times previously. He's basically a member of Carden's gang of fancy fairies, but he's actually sort of the nicest member of that group. And he suddenly, out of nowhere, starts talking to Jude and is being really nice and flirty with her. And for some reason, Jude is like, hell yeah, why not? With one of her bullies. And they almost kiss. I swear to God, this is basically out of nowhere. This has not been built up until this point, and we're like at chapter 14 right now. So yeah, Locke is being real nice now with her for some reason. After he's disappeared, Jude talks to Taryn, and Taryn says that she's actually found a suitor, but she won't say who it is. So Taryn's way of sort of coping with living in the fairy world and becoming a high-ranking member of the fairy world is essentially she's conforming to their standards, to their society, whereas Jude and Vivian are being more, like Vivian more so is being more anti, and Jude trying to really be like, I'm gonna make a name for myself, I'm a knight, I'm gonna show that I'm just as good as them. Taryn is basically just gonna go the whole social romance stealth kind of way by marrying into the fairy families, basically. So she has a suitor, but she won't say who it is yet. And Jude goes to her room, and there she finds the creepiest fucking shit ever, because she finds a message from Carden, and this is what it looks like. And you're like, what the actual fuck? Is Carden a fucking serial killer? I'm not even quite sure if this ever gets addressed, why he leaves her this super creepy note. I think she asks him about it, but it's not really a major point later. And this just adds to the whole, how is this boy who writes this going to become the love interest we're supposed to care about? Like, what the actual hell is wrong with this boy? In chapter 15, we get a bunch of outfit descriptions because the girls are being measured for their coronation dresses. Maddox's wife is there. Jude has like a fight with her. There's some like really unnecessarily dramatic and I think unintentionally hilarious descriptions how Jude describes how she's feeling as she's having this argument, because, and I swear to God, this is not a sex scene. This is how Jude describes her feelings while she's feeling angry because of this argument. I'm coming unraveled. I am coming undone. Excuse me, girl, but the only occasion which I'm coming undone is ever used, and we all know this, is during a sex scene. To be fair, it's a very cliched phrase, but we all know this is where this phrase belongs. And this is not this scene. So what the hell? So after this, Jude goes back to the spy lair. She does some assassin training, like learns about poisons and sneaking and all this. And then we're told that the next chapter, so this is about chapter 16, we're about halfway through the novel now. Jude just she just tells us that she goes on some missions and mostly successfully. She basically just tells us, oh yeah, I'm doing shit, I did shit off screen. And I'm like, would have been nice if we had maybe read about some of those spy adventures, because I don't know, I kind of thought this is what the book was going to be about now, but no! Another interesting plot beat thrown out the window. So, what continues this what continues then is the whole Locke and Jude romance kind of develops. They go on a date. There's more flirtation. So I guess they're kind of dating now. It honestly, if this feels out of place and out of nowhere, this is exactly what it felt like while I was reading the book. So don't ask me. We're being told at this point that the coronation is only a few days away, and I was like, but isn't like the coronation the big thing we're building towards? Again, I'm like, wasn't this like the major plot beat this story was building towards, that the story is going to be about, and now it's just gonna happen like in 1 or 2 chapters? Like, every time I think we or the story has found the major plot point that the story is going to be about, the book just throws it right out the window, like deals with it immediately, and I'm left to wonder, what the fucking hell are we even doing here? What is this book even going to be about? Because I have no idea. So with the coronation only being a couple of days away, that doesn't keep her bullies from, well, bullying Jude. There's this one friend of Carden's in particular called, I think, Valerian, who really like has it out for Jude. And basically he confronts her and intends to basically kill her, and she defends herself and stabs him in the ribs. But he doesn't die yet. After that, Jude talks to Locke again. They bond over them, that they both have lost their parents. All we really learn about Locke is like one sentence of him being like, yeah, my one parent left, the other one died, and now I'm all by myself. That's the entirety of the background and characterization we get for Locke. That's literally all we're getting. And this is sort of what they're bonding over now. I guess they're sort of dating now. It honestly felt a bit weird. They are eventually they're leaving. They attend to like attend a party or something. And I think it like sort of fades to black with like Jude and Locke, because in the next chapter 17, Locke, she wakes up in Locke's bedroom. So obviously there was some stuff going on. She talks to like some of the rich kids at the palace where she's staying, and then decides to go home. She finds out that Balekin like has that Balekin's evil plans might not be what they thought they were. So the whole poison aspect they found out about might not actually apply. So maybe Balekin doesn't actually want to poison Dane or someone else. But we don't really know yet what's going on here. Jude continues her spy work. She mentions at some point how much she's learned. And she says, I have learned a lot more since my first foray into Hollow Hall, enough to make me understand better the risks I was taking. And I'm like, would have been nice to see that development. Because remember, basically, we're at chapter 17 now. She started her proper spy work like 5 chapters ago. And now we're just told, I've learned so many things. I've advanced in my training. I've done a couple of jobs for Dane. And I'm like, it would have been real nice if you would have shown us some of that development. You know? Show, don't tell. Like, this book is really all about telling, not showing. Jude will constantly talk about what she wants, what she thinks, and she will say, oh, I've learned many things. Oh, I've done this and this. And you're like, Oh, Jude, it's not like me as a reader. I wanted to read about what you're actually up to, what your journey is. No, please just tell me what your progress is. That's exactly what I'm here for. So she continues some of her sneaking work, sneaks back into Baelkin's study. She doesn't really find anything there. But what happens is she meets another human servant girl there called, I think, Sophie. And she helps her get out of the glamour. Because, like, most of the servants, especially the human servants, are glamored. So, charm person, all that. And Jude helps Sophie out of the glamour. And Sophie naturally is absolutely shocked. She has no idea how she's gotten there. She has no idea what's going on, what this life is that she's had. And she's understandably very shaken to the core, basically, what has happened to her. But Jude decides, I'm gonna rescue this person now. And that's why I did this. So she takes Sophie and takes her to Viv, and basically says, Vivian, go and take this girl back to the human world so she can have a normal life. Viv, I think, rightfully says, is this like some kind of coping mechanism for what happened to our mum? And Jude's basically like, go and do it. This will never come up again, basically. And what happens then is that Sophie, unable to bury the truth of what has happened to her, kills herself. And then Jude is really upset for like one chapter. And that's that. That's not gonna come up again, but it has happened. And for some reason, Jude thought it was a good idea to get this random human girl out of there, get her out of the glamour, and then she's surprised that she can't deal with the truth, because I think that's quite understandable. But yeah, that's happened. She's going to be upset about this for like 1 or 2 chapters. In chapter 18, Prince Dane wants to see Jude again. He is angry because she stabbed that one fancy fairy guy, Valerian, and he threatens her with violence. And Jude acts surprised about this, and I was like, why? As far as you've known, from what we've seen, from the Fae, from what we've seen, they are major, violent, abusive assholes. Why are you so surprised about this? And the way in which she expresses her frustration about this was one of the laziest writing bits in this entire book. This is awful. This isn't how people show loyalty. This is epic, epic bullshit. You know what's epic, epic bullshit? This writing, Holly Black, because what the hell is this? I understand that she's a 17-year-old teenager, but what the hell is this? Like, this happens again later. We're probably going to get to it soon. But this is like the laziest writing ever. Couldn't you come up with like any other adjectives, adverbs? Were you just lazy that day? Like, what the hell is this? Because this is not it. This is not it. This is not good writing. This just feels awful. So yeah, Jude is surprised about this, that Dane threatens her with violence. He actually makes her stab her own hand. And once again, you're like, I'm not gonna care about any of these fairy people because they're all pieces of garbage. So, the preparations for the coronation are on the way. We we get a couple more interactions with Maddox's wife, Oriana. She seems to think that Jude is Dane's lover, which of course is not the case, but it hints sort of at her history, because she says she knows what it's like to be the High King's lover, so there's a bit of hinting there what her life was like. Valerian then returns. Jude goes to her room and Valerian attacks her at home. And this time she ends up actually killing him. Like, she stabs him in the chest and just hides the body under her bed. And no one finds out about it until she like gets rid of the corpse very casually later. And you're like, how does no one see, notice, or hear anything? Does this entire high fairy court not have any security? Like, what's going on? In chapter 19, she goes to she buries the body near the stable, somewhere. Again, somehow no one notices this. Then Maddox interacts with her, and he actually gives her a gift. She receives a sword from him, and this is how she describes this really important fancy sword. I think I'll make a little gasp. It's a really, really, really pretty sword. This is exactly like that other sentence we just had about epic bullshit, but even worse. It's like just the word really 3 times. It's like really, really, really pretty. And I'm like, what's this writing? What is this? You can't just say it's really, 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 really pretty. Tell me what the sword looks like. Describe to me the prettiness of the sword. Like, what's the hilt like? Are there like, I don't know, jewels embedded in it? Or like, is the blade all shiny? Is it, I don't know, just give me something. Holly Black, give me some descriptions. I beg of you, some kind of descriptions. Don't just tell me that stuff is really, 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 really cool or really, 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 really pretty. Just believe me, it's really pretty. I'm like, are you having lazy writing days? What is it? Just tell me. Tell us, Holly Black, and we will get you help. So yes, Jude gets a really, really, really pretty sword. From her dad, not dad, that I'll remind you, she loves, but also doesn't like, and he killed her parents. I'll just remind you of that. We get an ominous hint of this conversation where Maddox basically says, after tonight of the coronation, of the ceremony, things will be different. So chapter 20, we get the coronation. And no, this is not the finale of the book. This is chapter 20. We still got 10 more chapters ahead. So if you were thinking once again, oh, we found a major plot beat, the coronation is going to be what this story is building towards. No, that's not what we're doing. So in chapter 20, the dance and the ceremony is all on the way. Locke is interacting with Jude. He's being flirty, but also being weird. He's saying stuff like, oh, would you still love me if you knew the whole truth about me? Would you still love me? Blah, 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 blah. Those kinds of questions. Carden cuts in. He's being a dick, as always. And he basically, with a hint, says that Locke and Taryn are actually dating. So yes, this whole Taryn has a secret suitor thing. It's Locke. It was Locke the whole time. I know. So the king, the High King, gives his speech and names Dane as his heir, as was predicted by many people. However, Jude feels like something's up. She can just feel it. Something weird is going on. And then this book goes all red wedding on our asses, and Baelkin essentially kills almost the entire royal family. Like, he kills the sisters. Maddox comes in as well. Maddox kills Dane. The High King is also dead. More sisters are assassinated, and Baelkin wants to be crowned the new king. So we're gonna go. This is basically the end of part 1, so there's part 1 and part 2 in this book. This is the end of part 1. Like, we end with this entire red wedding, well, red coronation, I guess. That's how we sort of end part 1 of this. Maddox turns out is a dick. We knew that. Baelkin turns out to be a murderous dick. We knew that. And he wants to be crowned king now. However, what he needs for that is he can only be crowned king by a member of the royal family. So right now, the only person remaining alive in the royal family would be Carden, and the people, the populace, needs to agree that he is allowed to be king. But obviously, that's not entirely working out for him yet. So that's the end of part 1, and then we open up part 2, or book 2. Which chapter 21. So Carden, as I said, is the only one who can legitimize Baelkin's rule, essentially. He is High King now. He acts as High King. Carden finds Jude and basically drags her to safety. For some reason, just as Carden is getting her to safety, Jude decides it's now a good idea to threaten the man who just saved her with a knife. To be fair, I get that he's a dick. He's a massive arsehole and probably deserves to die. But also maybe the moment that he's trying to get you out of a fucking massacre is not the right moment to finally confront him for being an arsehole. I don't know, maybe it's not the right timing. She says that he's so awful. She basically says that she sees his face in her nightmares. That's how bad of a guy he is. And I want you to remember that. So basically this is how she describes Carden, how she thinks about him. My lip curls, but otherwise I keep my expression as mask-like as I know how, as cruel and cold as the face that reoccurs in my nightmares. It is only as I do it that I realize who I'm aping. So that's what she thinks about Carden. I just want you to keep this in mind. And they go to meet up with like the other assassins, the other spies back in Dane's spy cave. Essentially, here we get a great line from one of the spies as Jude and Carden are fighting and arguing and talking about what's happened. One of the assassins says, "Peace, both of you. We're all of us reeling," the roach says. Great line of dialogue. Probably the best line of dialogue in this entire book. Chapter 23, Jude is back home with her siblings. Taryn full-on reveals now that her secret boyfriend was Locke this entire time. Understandably, because remember, Taryn is a massive bitch. Understandably, Jude is very upset and angry, and she challenges Taryn to a duel. Essentially over a guy, but Jude is trying to be like, no, not over a guy. But Vivian is able to stop them before it gets any serious. And Jude goes on about how much she hates everything, but that she also loves everyone. Like, she essentially says, I'm just going to read it to you so you understand what I mean. I hate Taryn, I hate Maddox, I hate Locke, I hate Carden, I hate everyone. I just don't hate them enough. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean it's not enough? Taryn had this whole thing with Locke just going on. Like, Taryn very obviously does not like you. Jude, don't you get it? Maddox, do I even need to explain this? This man killed your parents in front of you when you were 7 years old. Locke, again, do I need to explain this to you? Locke played with your feelings knowingly while dating your sister. And Carden did all kinds of abuse to you. What do you mean you don't hate them enough? What else does it take for you to hate them properly, to actually do something? Like, what the hell? What do you mean you don't hate them enough? Like, all we get here is reasons for her hating these people, and she says that she doesn't like most of these people, but then she always acts like, but I can't do anything about it because I still like them too much. I'm like, why? Show me how. Why? I don't understand. Vivian offers to run away, which to me, honestly, is probably the best idea at this point. And Jude says she's gonna think about it. So in chapter 24, she goes and talks to Oriana, so Maddox's wife. And we learn here that Oak is actually the son of Dane. So Dane had an affair with Locke's mum, and from that, Oak basically came. Dane actually, just as a side note, Dane actually killed the woman later, so he killed Locke's mom. So Dane had a son, that's Oak, and Oak is going to be essentially the key to the crown. So Jude thinks that Maddox probably wants to use Oak, because you remember Oak is like living at his house. Maddox wants to use Oak to like get to the throne. In chapter 25, Cardan returns, and he talks to Jude. He's basically just being a little charismatic little shit. That's all it is about him. He's good looking and has charisma, but he's a little shit. We also learn here that he has a tail, because the fairies in this world, I'm probably going to come back to it later, the conclusion, fairies in this world, to me, are like tieflings in D&D. So like some of the fairies have like colorful skin, like green or red or something. Then some of them can have tails. Some of them can have like sharp teeth. There's, I don't think, a real consistency to this. Obviously Cardan only has a tail and no weird skin, because we need him to be a pretty boy. But to me, essentially, like, basically kind of like tieflings. That's how they work in my mind. And now Cardan is trying to sort of pull a I was mean to you because I like you. That's honestly what he's pulling. So at first he says this: I may be rotten, but my one virtue is that I'm not a killer. I wanted to frighten you, but I never wanted you dead. I never wanted anyone dead. Oh, you didn't? Then why did you help throw her in the river that almost killed her? Why did you stand there and watch when Valerian almost killed her in front of you and your friends multiple times? What the hell is your fucking problem, my man? And then he honestly goes on about that he hates her, but that he likes her because of that, because he keeps thinking about her. And she like sort of asks him, like, what is your problem with me? And this is how he explains this. Very well. He fixes me with a spiteful look. I hate you because your father loves you, even though you're human brat born to his unfaithful wife, while mine never cared for me, though I am a prince of Faerie. I hate you because you have a brother who beats you. I hate you because you don't have a brother who beats you. And I hate you because Locke used you and your sister make Nicasia cry after he stole her from me. Besides which, after the tournament, Balkan never failed to throw you in my face as the mortal who could best me. Cardan basically is a whiny little bitch. And he's jealous of her life, you know, the life in which she is constantly discriminated against by him and others alike. And he hates her also because he keeps thinking about her. And I swear to God, this is where this book pulls a he's being mean because he likes her thing. And she picks up on this. So Jude picks up on this and essentially tries to provoke it. And she wants to see if there's any truth to it. And she basically gets closer to him to make him nervous. And they kiss. I'm not kidding. This is how the first kiss happens. Desire hits me like a kick to the stomach. It's like fighting, except what we're fighting for is to crawl inside each other's skin. Which, first off, is a terrifying description. What are you trying to do? Rip each other's skin off. But second of all, yes, this is how the first kiss happens between our main couple of this book and of the series. He is being an absolutely abusive, downright violent arsehole bully because deep down he actually likes her, and she's basically trying to be like, oh, but does he? And then kisses him. And then she likes it. And we get essentially 4 paragraphs of kiss description that honestly made me feel really uncomfortable. Also, it's suddenly very detailed. Like, whenever there was like a kiss described between Jude and Locke, there was not this amount of detail. So you can really tell this is the kissing and the couple we're supposed to focus on, because we get 4 fucking paragraphs of kissing description. And I'll remind you, at this point, she doesn't even really like him yet. Like, what is this? What fucking is this? This is all manners of problematic and inappropriate and toxic. I could go on about it for hours, but we don't have time. So moving on from that, Jude does some Game of Thronesy kind of scheming, and that's actually a part I like, that she is honestly like trying to scheme, like how could she gain power in this system that doesn't benefit her? Who does she play out against who does she position where? Like, I do like this idea. I like this aspect of Jude's character. It's just that it took us literally 80% of the book to get to this kind of characterization from her. And even then, it's mostly tell don't show from her. So essentially what she wants is for Carden to crown Oak as the king, and then send Oak off somewhere else until he can like go up into a proper king. And in order to like carry out this plan, she puts Carden in her service, and he agrees to it. So he is going to be her servant for 1 year and 1 day. I bet this is going to come by to back her in the arse in book 2 or book 3. I hope. I will never find out, because I'm probably not going to continue this series. In chapter 27, they say there's going to be a feast, for Belkin, and Carden tells Jude about, how does the court work, who are like some high-ranking lords. We need to appeal to them in order to like garner their support. In chapter 28, Jude does some of the pre-work, like pre-planning for her plan. She talks to Viv and says that she should take Oak to the human world and basically keep him there for a few years. And I'm like, for a few years? Girl, you're telling your older sister, who's like, what, I don't know, 20? Early 20s, you're telling her, take this 12-year-old, or take this 10-year-old and please go and raise him for a couple of years. Like, that's nothing. That's a big deal. I don't know. In chapter 29, they all attend the feast. So, where Belkin wants to get crowned king and all that. Jude ends up talking or confronting Maddox, and they end up fighting. And I swear to God, Jude is actually surprised by how well Maddox can fight. He has never fought me like this, full out. This will be no genteel exchange of blows. He's the High King's general. I knew he was better than me, but not how much better. I'm like, bitch, this is the High King's general, as in literally the best fighter in the kingdom. He raised you. You trained with him. He trained you. Of course, he's good at fighting. Like, why are you surprised about this? I thought you're supposed to be smart, girl. But you're clearly not. So she's surprised about this, but she actually manages to best him, because it turns out that she poisoned him earlier with a cup of wine, which, to be fair, was actually hinted at in the previous, in the previous chapter, but it was hinted at earlier that she prepped a cup for him and gave it to him. So, to be fair, that was actually foreshadowed within the narration. And then we enter chapter 30, the final chapter of the book. The plan goes off, quite literally, because first of all, what happens is a bomb explodes. What happens is Belkin throws himself over Carden to protect him. Once again, Jude acts all surprised about it, and I'm like, why? Cardan is the only person who can legitimize Baelkin as king. So of course he would want to keep Cardan safe, and that's why he throws himself over him as the bomb goes off. This doesn't mean betrayal, this doesn't mean confusion, this makes sense, because of course Baelkin would want to keep the one guy who can legitimize him as king safe. So why the fuck are you confused about this? So there's a bit of a kerfuffle, the crown goes flying, and it lands for a moment, it lands in Taryn's hands. Jude confronts her, they both cling on to it, but then Taryn more or less lets go. Jude takes the crown sort of reluctantly, and then we get the one sort of plot twist. There is a switcheroo. Instead of Oak being crowned king, Cardan is crowned High King by Oak. And of course, Cardan did not see this coming. And this is supposed to sort of ensure a safe-ish rule until Oak is old enough to take over the throne. So this is sort of an in-between solution that Cardan sort of takes over for a couple of years until Oak is old enough, and then Cardan is supposed to abdicate and hand over the crown to Oak, and the book ends with Cardan being crowned and him being more or less angry with her, and Jude gets nicknamed the Queen. But we're not done yet. We do get an epilogue with Vivian, her girlfriend Heather, and Oak in the human world. So Oak is being raised there. And we end this story with Cardan talking to Jude. He is still kind of upset about it, but also kind of intrigued by her plan. And they have a little conversation in the throne room, and this is how the book ends. So Cardan stands in front of the throne, and he says to Jude, "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" He asks. "What you sacrificed everything for. Go on, it's all yours." And that's how The Cruel Prince ends. And not a terrible ending. Like I said, I actually do kind of like the Game of Thrones-y YA vibes we get here. Unfortunately, they're buried very, very deep within a very, very mediocre and bad story. So that was The Cruel Prince. More thoughts on it? In the end, my rating for this book was like a 1.75 because, again, it's not the most terrible book I've read. There have been like worse books, that like the sort of popular TikTok fantasy books. Like, it's not that bad, you know, like Fourth Wing. But this also isn't very good. What this story needed, well, first off, what this book needed was an actual story. Because this book isn't really about a specific kind of plot or story until like 75% into the story. Because at first you're thinking, oh, it's gonna be about her going against Madder because she's mad at him. Nope, she actually loves him. Then she starts talking about the tournament that she wants to fight there and declare her knighthood so she can become a knight of the realm. Nope, tournament's dealt with 2 chapters later. Then Dane shows up and asks her to be a spy and introduces her to like this spy craft and assassin shit. And you're like, oh cool, so this is all going to be about the spy work and how she learns to be an assassin and do some cool jobs for Prince Dane. Nope, that's not what the story is going to be about. Oh, they've been talking about this coronation for a long time, so maybe this is what the story is building towards, that there's going to be a big coronation thing. Nope, coronation happens halfway through the book. And then, only sort of after that do we get sort of a main story where it's like, oh, okay, we're going to deal now with the fallout of this red wedding coronation shit, and we have to figure out how we prevent Delkin from becoming a horrible king. Like, Part 2 eventually gets a coherent narration, like narrative more or less, but before that, no idea. I kept asking myself, what the hell is the story supposed to be? Every time the book introduces a seemingly major plot point where my brain was like, oh cool, this is what the story is going to be about. The book throws it out the window 2 chapters later, and it's dealt with. And I was like, I thought this is what we're doing. Why is this not what we're doing? In terms of this being a fairy fantasy, I have to say, I'm not quite sure if I understood what fairies are supposed to be. What's so special about them? Because to me, first of all, visually speaking, I already mentioned, visually speaking, they seem to be tieflings. Sort of like that. Like, some of them have weird skin, some of them have tails, some of them have weird eye colors. But that's sort of it. And then they're all mean. So essentially, to me, fairies in this book were good-looking, mean wankers. That's what fairies are. And the way they behave throughout the book was mostly like the same as the human characters, just like with a big punch of fantasy racism added to all that. Because, oh boy, is there a lot of fantasy racism, especially internalized one from Jude, because the book is told from her point of view. So there's a lot of, they hate me because I'm worse than them. They hate me because I'm human. I must work hard because I'm human, so I'm not as good as them. So I must improve. I must be as good as them because I'm only human, but I must be as good as fairies. So there's a lot of internalized fantasy racism talk going on. Like, a lot of it. And in general, there's a lot of like Jude just like bemoaning what's going on, like how awful it is to be a human in this fairy world. And she talks a lot about I want to be one of them, and I was like, why? They're awful. They killed your parents. They almost kill you. Why do you want to be one of them? Why don't you just leave with your sister as she proposes? But no, Jude always says that she wants to be one of them. She wants to be as good as them, and she like always talks about this kind of stuff, but I feel like the story doesn't put in enough effort to really show us how she works for that. In general, there's a lot of tell, don't show in this book, which is awful. Like I said, Jude simply like says a lot of stuff about like what she wants, what she intends to do. What she talks a lot about like some convenient expository narrative. And I'm like, how many times can you conveniently remember world building bits? Like, how many times can that happen in one book? No descriptions, like I said. And the general problem is that this book is not long enough. Like, this is like a YA fantasy book that tries to do like some Game of Thrones types of politics shit, but it tries to do it in under 400 pages. And honestly, I'm not surprised that everything feels so convoluted and underdeveloped if we have so many major plot points being introduced and then being dropped immediately. Because if you only want to do this in under 400 pages, yes, that's what's going to happen. But then if you only have 370 pages, then please focus on like 2, 3 really important bits and tell the story about that. Don't introduce like 5, 6 different seemingly major important plot beats and then deal with them like 2 chapters later, because that is irritating as hell. The characters are a mess. Jude is not the worst main character I've encountered in those types of novels. However, she isn't exactly great. What I do like about her is that, you know, she does have, towards the end of the book, she does have this sort of like Game of Thronesy politics scheming vibe, which I do like. I just wish it had been implemented more throughout the book and earlier, because I think those aspects of her character are interesting. However, it's often said, you know, how skillful and how intelligent she is, and yet she acts like the dumbest character in some scenes. Like, she's told so many times, don't do this, don't do that, this is a bad idea. Why did you do this? You really shouldn't. Like, multiple characters telling her not to do stuff, and she's like, well, I'm gonna do it anyway, because it was my idea. And then she fails, and she's like really upset and surprised that her plan failed. And you're like, yeah, no shit, everyone told you it was a bad idea. I knew this was a bad idea, so why the heck are you acting all surprised? In general, like, she's surprised about stuff where I'm like, why are you surprised about this? This was really clear that it was going to turn out this way. Like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years while you were living here? Like, at least with her character, I can see some potential that she could become interesting and likable, unlike Carden, because Carden is the biggest abusive bully wanker I've ever seen that's made out to be the love interest. To be honest, this first book is not entirely focusing on the romance yet. It's a bit more about, Jude and her journey rather than the romance, but you can definitely tell this is what the story is going to be eventually about later down the road. And you're like, how am I ever supposed to accept this? He bullies her. He outright hates her. He berates her with the worst kind of fantasy sexism. Him and his friends are responsible for her almost dying several times. Like, he makes her do some unimaginable, fucked up, inappropriate shit. And then the book is turning around and is like, yeah, but he does have a sad family life, so please feel empathy for him now. I'm like, no, I'm not. Yeah, it's upsetting that he has a sad family life and that he is abused by his brother. But it's not an explanation, it's not an excuse for the kind of bullying and outright violence that he puts on Jude. That is no explanation whatsoever. And honestly, the fact that she even ends up kissing him, even if it's out of like some mild provocation, but she ends up liking it, is honestly laughable that she would do that. And that the book honestly pulls a, oh, he only bullies you because he likes you, is the worst, honestly to me, one of the worst kinds of tropes, because it never paints the love interest in a good light. And you're just left to wonder, how the fuck am I supposed to root for this relationship if one of the partners is this toxic and awful? So yeah, this is The Cruel Prince. Thank you for everyone who's voted for this. If you're curious, I'm gonna put up a new poll right after this video has gone up, where you can vote for the next novel within this series. There will be 4 or 5 popular TikTok books you can choose from various genres, and the one that gets the most votes will read next. So I hope you enjoyed my ramblings and my ranting. Please do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are on this book. Have you read The Cruel Prince before? If so, what are your thoughts on the book? Did you actually enjoy it, or did you not enjoy it just as much as me? Or were you maybe just listening to me ranting about a book even though you haven't read it yet? Just tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are on the book. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.